In this episode of the Stretch Goals podcast, Scott and I are going to be asking you the question, are you a micromanager? This is the Stretch Goals podcast, where each week we'll share insights and lessons learned based on our experiences as entrepreneurs. We'll challenge you to create ambitious goals as you start and grow your business. I'm your host, Robert Dickerson.
And I'm Scott Davis.
So Scott, I like this topic this week. Are you a micromanager? Because everyone likes micromanagers, don't they?
Yeah. Have you ever had a conversation where it was like, oh man, dude, he's a micromanager. Oh, I love working for him. Yeah, that never happens.
Yeah, everyone hates it. So we're going to talk about, some ways that you can tell if you're a micromanager, and then also maybe a couple things that you can do to make sure that you're not falling into the trap of micromanagement.
Sure. And, I'll say this, it's easy to become a micromanager without knowing it, I think, because especially in the corporate space where you've got so many deliverables and different things that you're being held accountable for, it's easy for somebody to forget about what matters, which is managing the relationships with your employees, right? And then all of a sudden you get into actionable insights and measurable events, and then all of a sudden you're a micromanager, didn't even know it.
Well, as a leader, you're in charge of making sure that everyone gets their work done. That's the metric that they're holding you accountable against. And so you want to have control over that. And a lot of times I see when people come up through the ranks, when they're not properly trained in management, they still want to get their hands dirty. They still want to, that's what they know is kind of the day-to-day operation. So they want to dive in, they want to get involved. But a lot of times, my idea of a manager is just, getting out of the way and providing a platform for your employees to be successful, right? That is, in my mind, success for a manager. It's getting out of the way and making sure that your employees have the resources to get things done. And if you can do that, I think you can be a successful manager.
Do you think that management styles for startups in the corporate environment could be different and could lend themselves into micromanaging status differently?
I think so. But I think there's probably more similarities. I mean, being a leader, when we've talked about it in previous episodes, it's about, really making people accountable and communicating and trust. And those are three areas we're going to talk about a little bit later about how you can improve and not be a micromanager. And if you hire the right people and you communicate what you want to do and you hold them accountable and you trust them, you can be successful. And then if you remove blockers out of their way, they'll be successful as well, because the idea is that as a team, you want to get to the end point, you want to get to the end of the product. And so it's a team effort. And so, think about these three things. Are you a micromanager? Do you bug your employees all day? I know we've all had a manager like that where they're sending us emails, they're stopping by our door and asking us, hey, how's it going? I think of Office Space, Yeah. So if you're doing that all day, that's probably a good sign that you might be a micromanager.
Yeah, I hated that, constantly wanting to know what the status is on stuff. It comes down to trust, which we talked about in episode 38. If you trust your employees to get their job done and you trust their skill sets, you don't need to bother them. The flip side to that is if that employee is letting you down and not meeting the deliverables, then you have some trust issues, which is valid. So if you are an employee and you feel like you're being micromanaged and you look around and your other employees don't feel micromanaged, it might be a sign that you aren't doing the work that you're expected to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another area is, if you're a manager and you're holding multiple meetings every day to get status updates, that might be a good sign that you're micromanager and you're not communicating properly, or you're not providing channels for your employees to communicate. If you're having meetings all day with people, how is anyone being productive and getting work done?
Yeah. And the other thing is don't have meetings for meeting's sake, number one. But number two, you should be able to know what's going on without having all hands meetings. You should know if you've got a good relationship with your employees and you trust them, which we just talked about, then they'll tell you where they are on things and you'll know, and you won't have to have unproductive recurring meetings.
I think a lot of times people have meetings because maybe they don't understand the process, right? If you're doing like a development work or something, you don't understand how things are supposed to run. And so you feel like you need to be really connected with the developers to make sure that they're doing work. I mean, this applies to other areas as well, sales, marketing. I mean, it's very similar in all of them. But you need to trust the employees that you hire to do the right work. I mean, you need to have a basic understanding in whatever kind of field you're managing those people, right? And as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I'm forced into managing people in areas that I'm not an expert in, right? Whether it's sales or marketing, right? Those are areas that I'm still learning on. And so, I need to hire the right people. Oh, design is another one, right? And so I need to hire the right people and I need to trust them, but I also need to have kind of a basic understanding. And so I can understand how that's a trade-off there, that you maybe need to get more involved, but having daily meetings, daily stand-ups is not the right solution. I mean, another thing I've found is to sit down with maybe a senior level person and walk through what they think the process should be and get their feedback, right? Especially when you're setting deadlines and you're setting things like that, get that person's feedback. Is this reasonable? That's something I ask a lot of people is, here's my expectation. Is that reasonable? And use their expertise for them to tell you like, yes, no, that's reasonable or that's not reasonable.
Sure. Those are great points. That helps you out in the planning process too. So, the one pet peeve that I really hate about a micromanager is when they hover over your shoulder. Let's say there's a critical outage or they need you to develop something really quick. Don't ask me or tell me to do something and then stand there right behind me and watch me do it, because that's not going to make it go any faster. I don't need your extra 10 fingers to write this code. I definitely don't need you standing there looking at me and burning a hole in the back of my head like Superman. So I hate that. If you're hovering over people's shoulders, it's not effective. Okay. Unless you're firing them and seeing them out the building. So I feel like Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck. You might be a micromanager if you hover over people's shoulders.
Another one is you might be a micromanager if you don't trust your employees to work from home.
There you go. So you're saying Melissa Meyer from Yahoo is a micromanager?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, right? Because if the ultimate goal of a manager or any leader is to empower your people to do their job, whatever it is that they're there for. It could be someone on the front lines of a military combat. It could be a McDonald's hamburger cooker. It could be a software developer. It doesn't matter. But whoever's managing whatever person, the goal is to do some set out objective. And if you're motivating them properly and you're a good leader, you don't need to see them to make it happen, right? You can work from home, like you just said.
I mean, not all jobs you can work from home. If you're a retail employee or you need to work in a store or something, right? Those are things that you have to be there, right? There's certain jobs. I mean, I was a lifeguard. I had to be at the pool. I couldn't lifeguard from home, right? Be a video camera or something. So I mean, yeah, there's certain jobs that you need to be there, but other jobs in the corporate world, and there's a lot of them, is that you can work from anywhere and any time. And a lot of times the people that I hire, I really don't care when they work, how they work. It's just, I want the work done. And so, a lot of times I'll make sure there's overlap in the times that we are working. I mean, that's always productive, right? If you have questions, because, I've worked with people in Australia and it's totally opposite. And so it's hard to do collaborative type things. But if people are working on their own and you've given them clear direction, communication, they can complete that work separately and you don't have to be right there beside them. And it's great to, if you're working with people, in other countries and stuff too, to wake up in the morning and see that work has been accomplished overnight while you've slept. Mm-hmm.
If you're a control freak, you might be a redneck. I mean, if you're a control freak, you might be a micromanager. You might be a redneck.
I do like control.
Yeah, but if you're a control freak, if you absolutely have to have control over every aspect, it tends to lead into micromanaging, because you then feel like you can do everything. And if you feel like you can do everything, why do you have these people? Because you need to trust them to do their job. So if you can't let them do it, then they shouldn't be your employees.
I think that's something as new managers, as new leaders, if you're just starting out, that's something I've seen a lot of, that it's hard for people to let go of that control. They've done something a certain way, maybe as a technician, in the role, and they move up into a management role. And so they're used to doing doing stuff their own way in a certain way. And so they try to apply that technique to everyone. You have to do this exact same way. If you're not doing it, I'm going to go back and fix it so you are. And so I think you need to be very careful about doing that, because people have different styles of work. And as long as they're accomplishing the work that needs to be done, then why does it matter if we all do it the same way, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And on the flip side, if you're an employee, just because you don't like your manager's management style doesn't mean that he or she is a micromanager, right? It just means that you've got to figure out how to work within their mechanisms of management, right? So don't confuse being unhappy with your manager's style with micromanagement.
Yeah, and I mean, if we go into, how do you stop these things? How do you be a better manager? I mean, I think one way is communication. It's a two-way street, right? From both the employee needs to communicate, kind of how they work, how they'd like to receive feedback, how they'd like to be communicated with. If the manager understands that and they understand how to engage with them and communicate with them, then you can create a better relationship there. It needs to be that open communication and not just, why does this guy keep telling me what to do, right? He's like, they're micromanaging me, right? If you can create that communication dialogue and set an expectation there, I think that would really help.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in life in general, you need to be constantly looking at yourself and asking how you're affecting other people. Like, I mean, every day, like from the way that you interact with your wife or your kids or your employees or whatever, like you can always make improvements, right? And if you don't recognize that you can make improvements, you got something wrong with you. But my point is, if you are noticing the morale of your team is down, or maybe people are responding differently, take a step back and ask yourself if, what you could do better. And maybe you'll be able to see that you're developing tendencies that are micromanager-esque. But that's a good way, like constantly self-assess, once a week, once a month, something, just on a regular basis, do that.
Yeah, I think the self-assessment is really good. And also to get feedback from people of how you're doing, people that you trust, to give you feedback that'll be truthful with you. And you have to be receptive of that feedback and not take it personally, right? Because you're trying to improve. And, another thing I wanted to say too is that I'm always of the mindset that if your employees fail, that's a failure on your part as a leader,
Yes.
as a manager.
Yes.
And you really have to think about it like that. You did not give them the right tools to get the work done if you're failing, right? If your employees are failing.
Unless you have bad apples. I mean, there's that. But yeah, I agree. I agree for the most part on that. And I think the other thing is, what can we do if we're an employee and our boss is definitely a micromanager? What can we do to help coach them to getting out of that micromanager box?
I think it's hard because, people get set in their ways. And especially if you have an experienced manager that's been doing it a long time, if they've been micromanaging for a long time, I think it can be really difficult to change their ways, right? But what you can do is open that communication channel, that dialogue, and really continuously have a dialogue of, how can we best work together? How can we be most productive? And try to set those boundaries, set those expectations, and keep communicating that over and over again. Don't wait for like a review once a year, right? I mean, really, as you're working, start communicating those needs, and then you'll develop that relationship over time.
Sure. Yeah, it's a fine line. I mean, you can't bust into his or her office and be like, "Hey, quit micromanaging me, jerk."
Yeah.
It's more, you gotta have to feel them out and say, "So what can I do better? You've been really on me lately. I feel like I'm getting my work done. What can I do better?" Like, it's all about how you phrase that question or that conversation. But don't be afraid to do it. The worst thing that can happen is nothing, right? Nothing happens. You're not going to get fired because you ask a question. Well, you shouldn't. But go in, just talk to them and see what happens. Like you said, if you develop that relationship over time, that establishes trust. And as trust is established, there's less need to micromanage.
Yeah, and we talked about that, in a previous episode, trust. And, you really need to trust your employees. And another area to think about too is holding them accountable. Like, how do you communicate effectively so that you can define what they need to do and then hold them accountable? And that can be both positive accountability and negative accountability, right? You want to tell them they're doing a good job and kind of reward, accomplishments of your team. but also try to figure out when you're not meeting those deadlines, what's happening, right? Are you being too aggressive in your schedules and your deadlines? Do you not have the right resources in your team to get things done? And that communication will help you figure out from your employees, where are things breaking down in this relationship? How can we do a better job?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it, but you're absolutely right. If you have good communication with your employees and your team, you know who's effective at what. You know what your timelines are on things generally. If you're using Scrum or something, you know your velocity in sprints. You know all these things because you've been doing your job for a while. Sometimes I think, though, the reason that micromanagers are who they are is because they just want to be doing everything. And that's a natural instinct as a human. You want to be able to do everything because you trust yourself, right? But if you've got the insight and data into how your team runs on a daily basis, you don't need to do that. So if you are a micromanager, maybe you need to look at some, quantitative, data to show how well your team's doing on a regular basis. If you're a McDonald's manager, figure out how many hamburgers you're selling. If you're a software manager, figure out what your team velocity is. Do something so that you can, quantify that, and that'll let you step back because you'll be like, you know what, we're on pace. I don't need to be up these guys' butts asking them questions all the time.
I mean, I think it can be a fine line, especially if you're just starting a business and you have a small team. And, like for me, I have to jump in a lot of times to get things done just because I have to help move things along. So there's that fine line between.
Well, that's leadership too. That's leadership.
Right. It's a fine line between me stepping on people's toes and making sure stuff gets done, and kind of like I view myself as filling in the gaps, right?
Yeah.
To get to the end product. Sometimes I have to fill in those gaps to get there.
Sure.
So it definitely can be a balancing act. And I try to communicate with people on my team, this is why I'm doing this. I'm not trying to step on your toes. I'm not trying, because, people like that ownership of what they're doing. And if someone comes in and starts, changing things, that people can get really annoyed with that.
Sure. So let's talk about this for a second. What is the opposite of a micromanager? Would that be an unmanager? Because,
not
like
management, no management.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is a problem as well, right? Because you're not setting deadlines. You're never talking to people, right? And things just go off the rails because there is no one kind of managing the day-to-day aspects of things. Everyone just kind of giving a free pass and saying, all right, just go to work.
Right. And is that a danger in your opinion to the flat?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that. But is it a danger to have that flat org structure where nobody reports to anybody? Because that can kind of happen in some places. But I think it's one of those things where everyone owns their own little property and they take it under their own ambition, and it's fine. But yeah. So I have one question: are you a micromanager, Rob?
I hope I'm not.
I know I'm not. I'm probably closer to the unmanager. I'm like, hey, here's what we're doing. You go do it.
I mean, for me, running a business I just don't have time to do that, right? I mean, I need people that can operate autonomously, that can be given general direction and start running with it. I just don't have time to hold people's hands and watch all their code and stuff like that. I mean, I just don't have that. And that's why I continuously bring on people to help me, because I just don't have time to do that. And I think, if you're starting a business, you'll find that as well, that you just don't have time to do the micromanagement. If you do have a lot of time to micromanage, then I don't know, maybe you're managing a huge division or something like that. I mean, but you need to bring on the right people. And, like we said, the three things is, accountability, communication, and trust.
Absolutely. Yep. Trust your employees. Make things more efficient.
See you next week.